Yo guys, Anboni here, and in this video I'll show you how to beat Frost Mages as a Shadow Priest. For that reason I got Usain Bolt, or Ice Cube lol, helping me out with the duels. He's a 2800 experienced mage and a gladiator last season, and easily the highest ranked mage I know. Now, before I start with the dueling guide itself, I want to say that I really had a lot of fun dueling Usain. It's funny how you just you take something as basic and mundane as dueling, but as soon as we both were on Skype and we set out to do this guide thing, it was a blast. I had a lot of fun. We kept swapping like spots to duel, and we kept swapping like experiences, and I told him like what he can do to improve, and he told me what I can do to improve. And also it's funny how dueling changes so much depending on who you fight. Because you adapt to their playstyle and then they adapt to yours, and etc. You kind of counter each other. It's really funny because this is how the duels went. So first of all, like in the first let's say 4 or 5 duels, he completely owned me, and then I adapted to that, and that was my long reign of dominance began, and I won like most of the duels. But then he actually like realized what he was doing wrong, and I also gave him some tips, I guess. I told him what he can do to fuck me up a bit more, and then and then he completely dominated me. And then, well, I'm not gonna spoil it. Just stick till the end, and you'll see what's gonna happen. But really, what I wanted to say is, against not so high rated mages, you generally have a way easier time as a Shadow Priest. The duels actually aren't very hard at all, but there's a certain playstyle that a mage can do, on top of being really good at the game, like CSing very fast and all that. There's a certain playstyle that if the mage has it, it becomes almost impossible to win. However, and this is a big disclaimer, if there's line of sight in the area you're dueling, then you should win every single one of the games, or at least like the big majority. Line of sight helps the Shadow Priest immensely, and we did try a few games with line of sight, and like then we both realized how much of a huge advantage it is for me to have line of sight, and then we kind of gave up and said, okay, we're gonna duel without line of sight. Because if you play with line of sight, basically whenever you're in trouble, whenever you deep pretty low, you don't even have to trinket deep freeze or anything really. Well, I mean you do, yeah, but whenever you're low, you can just run behind line of sight and start healing yourself up. And if the mage decides to push in to stop you, and he has to push in to stop you, otherwise you'll be back at full HP, then you can just get a free fear on him. And getting a fear in a mage duel is actually huge, but we will get to that in a second. Alright, first things first, you want to make sure you grab the right talents and glyphs. For talents, you can pretty much stay with your default talent tree. However, I would recommend specking out of Surge of Darkness, since mages can just spell steal that, and you kind of waste damage, and they also get healed when they spell steal. So I mean you can play with Surge of Darkness, it's not horrible, but you have to keep in mind that it will get spell stolen, and you want to like shoot those instant mind spikes really fast as soon as they proc. But I would recommend against it. And really for most of these duels I tried Mindbender, and Mindbender works really well. You can generally pop 2 of them in one duel, and they tend to actually solo the mage. And yeah, Mindbender is probably the best, but also tried Insanity in some of the later duels, and we'll get to that. But again, like the bulk of this video is gonna be how to duel regular mages, because the fact that Usain Bolt adapted to my strategy is something completely different. So I would recommend Mindbender, and also I would recommend Halo instead of Cascade. The reason I take Halo is, again, you can do about 2 of them in one duel, and you can combine one Halo with your Vampiric Embrace, and it actually heals you for quite a decent amount. Whereas if you stay Cascade, it's only gonna bounce 2 times on the mage, and really that's not a lot of damage. And as for glyphs, there is one really important glyph that you absolutely must have, and that is Glyph of Silence. And then you obviously stay Glyph of Psychic Horror, and then you want to inspect the mage actually. And if the mage is playing with Glyph of Regenerative Ice, which is, whenever they ice block they get healed up, then you must take Glyph of Mass Dispel to get rid of their ice block. but if they're not playing that that particular glyph, then you're gonna want to take Glyph of Fade. Now, what is the win condition for a mage? Well, a mage is gonna pretty much one-shot you, and he has Deep Freeze for that, and double Ice Nova, and then Comet Storm, and then, you know, the fat Ice Lance with the icicles. And if they can get this burst properly, you're gonna lose the duel right there if you don't respond to it. So usually the way Usain Bolt did it, and I think this is like the most damage a Frost Mage can do, like the best rotation, is you know, you get Deep Freezed, and then he pops his Icy Veins, and then they shoot, I think they have time for 3 or 4 Frost Bolts, and then they pop their Orb with the double Ice Nova on Ice Lance and Comet Storm, and that pretty much takes you to 20% HP. And yeah, you're dead at that point. On top of that, if they don't kill you right then and there, if you manage to counter their burst correctly, they also have 2 ice blocks, and they can also polymorph you to reset the fight. Although, in all honesty, if they resort to that, if they end up polymorphing you, and they're like excluding the beginning of the duel, if they end up polling you like in the middle of the game, you pretty much win the duel. But yeah, they have that option as well to reset the fight. Also, they've got Blink, Blazing Speed, and Pet Nova, and Perma Slows. So it makes it almost impossible for you to land a fear on a good mage. And compared to all that, my win condition is simply surviving through 3 or sometimes 4 Deep Freezes, and that's really it. My normal rotation of Mind Blast, Dots, and Mindbender and everything is enough to kill him as long as I don't die before that. I know it sounds kind of stupid and straightforward, but really I'm focusing more on staying alive and denying him his win condition and trying to avoid as much damage as possible. Again, if you have line of sight, the game is yours, but if you don't, it becomes a little bit tricky. So really trying to explain to you guys how to actually beat a Frost Mage is pretty difficult, because what you have to do as a Shadow Priest is actually outplay the mage and like actually try to react to his actions. Compare that to the mage's point of view, where a good mage will always play extremely aggressive and in your face, so that, you know, he overwhelms you with damage and CC and all that. You, on the other hand, you try to react and just try to stay alive, while of course doing as much damage as possible. So really the best thing I can do is just give you general tips and like ideas of how to counter whatever the mage does. So the first thing I can say is I opened every single game, or almost every single game I opened with Silence, and I tried to get my Psychic Core in there as soon as possible. That way I can get the cooldown back like in between his Deep Freezes. Also, I pop my Mindbender really fast in the game so I can have time for the second one. And from there on, it's really just a matter of countering his moves. Here's the thing. See, I told you, it's hard for me to actually go you through like a general mage guide, because people play differently. But what I've noticed that Usain does is, so he Deep Freezes me, and then he chunks 3 or 4 Frost Bolts, depending on how much time I've left in the Deep Freeze. And then at the very end of the Deep Freeze, he pops all of his offensives, which is, you know, an Ice Lance, and double Ice Nova, and Meteor, whatever it's called, the Comet Storm. So I tried, you know, trinketing at the very last second of Deep Freeze, and then Spectral Geising, and that way he's gonna do, sometimes he actually did 2 Ice Novas on himself, because, you know, if you don't have a target, you do it on yourself. And also, like, I tried dispersing at the very end of a Deep Freeze, and that actually worked really well for a while until he caught onto it and adjusted. But yeah, you can try that. Like, if it's the first time dueling a mage, you can like sit the full Deep Freeze, and then at the very end of the Deep Freeze you disperse. Like you can pretty much predict what the last Frostbolt is gonna be, and before he finishes casting the last Frostbolt, you disperse right there, and then his double Ice Nova and Meteor Storm, Comet Storm is gonna hit you in the dispersion, and if you manage to do that, you're actually way ahead. One more small tip I can give you is, if you're playing with the Silence Glyph, and you should, don't ever silence as soon as it comes right off cooldown, because it is going to be DR'd. So instead you want to wait 1 extra second. It's kind of silly, but it is what it is. Like if you mash your silence button, it is definitely going to DR, and it's gonna be a 1.5 second silence instead of a 3-second silence, and you don't want that. You don't want that at all. Also, whenever you have downtime, let's say he ice blocks or decides to run away and kite away, and you don't have anything else to do, start spamming flash heals. Actually, spamming flash heals is a really annoying counter for a mage. The mage can respond to that by spamming frost bolts into you, and he is going to pretty much keep you like at the same level on your HP bar. However, of course, he's gonna get icicles from that, and you know, the next deep freeze is gonna hurt that much more. But yeah, spamming flash heals is definitely a valid option. So do that whenever you have time, whenever the mage decides to piece it, or go invisible, or stay a full ice block if you don't have the ice block glyph, if you don't have the mass dispel glyph. Okay, now I'll go over one of our duels, and to be fair, Usain started off as a pretty general basic mage, you know, that's pretty easy to beat, and that's why I chose to review one of these games right here. This type of play from an enemy mage will make you win almost every single game, and this is how most mages will play, so that's why I decided to review this one. However, Usain was pretty smart and quickly tuned his strategy, you know, also with some tips from myself, and yeah, he started countering me really bad. And I'll also be covering this much harder to beat, way harder to beat playstyle, as well as, you know, actually telling you what it consists of. It's gonna be in the video following this one probably, so stick around till the end and I'll explain everything. Alright, so the duel starts, and as soon as it starts I decide to take off my my fortitude buff. It's gonna end up being spell stolen anyway, and you know, instead of wasting time trying to dispel it back, it's pointless, so I'll just take it off right now. So as I said, I'm gonna start with the silence and the mind blast to get that orb rolling, and then pop my unused trinket and shadow fiend. But also I noticed that Usain Bolt actually trinketed my silence and pet froze me. So that only means that deep freeze is on its way. So I'm going to be spamming that special guys button, and I do manage to special guys before he actually lands the deep freeze. But also I see him popping icy veins and also orb. So that's actually a pretty big mistake by him, because he thought he would get that deep freeze and he obviously didn't. If he would have gotten that deep freeze, I would have instantly trinketed and then special guys, and that way he would have taken a trinket off me. But the end situation would have still been pretty much the same. Now I'm in a special guys and I'm not taking any damage, so I can sit it. However, I want to just come out of it and instantly dispel his icy veins. Now I know he's gonna deep freeze me as soon as I come out of this spectral guys, but I want to make sure I get his icy veins at least. So I come out of spectral guys and I do a dispel, and I instantly fade myself because I know a lot of damage is coming. He's gonna deep freeze me and try to one-shot me. I also squeeze in a mind blast over there so I can get my 2 orbs. And instead of deep freezing me immediately, he decided to just go for the burst, which is double ice nova into comet storm, and that chunks half of my HP. And he still has deep freeze, so I'm going to horror him because my fade ended right now. It was a really good fade. It blocked all of his burst, but I'm still at half HP. So I'm gonna horror him on 2 orbs because I fear deep freeze is coming, and at the very least I want to have my dots rolling on him when he deep freezes me. So I decide to go for a 2 orb horrify here, and I get the dots and he does deep freeze me, and I decide to trinket here because I want to stay offensive. I don't want him to like get any more pressure, and I run in for a fear. Of course I know for a fact that he's gonna blink this fear, so I don't even bother pushing the fear because it would only get juked. Instead I start following him again. I get a mind blast off again, and I start following him, and then he has no way of actually like nowhere to run, and no mobility left for the fear, so he just decides to ice block it. So all I can do is just sit there and flash heal myself up. As soon as he comes out of the ice block, I'm going to silence him so I can get my free dots on him without getting CS. I also squeeze in a mind blast before he pet roots me into a ring of frost. And before that ring of frost I managed to get the devouring plague as well, and that devouring plague is going to tick him down. Now I know he's gonna try to either deep freeze me out of this ring of frost, or at the very least do a lot of damage because I am frozen and it is going to be a shatter combo with whatever he decides to do. So I will just spam spectral guys, and luckily I do get the spectral guys. His deep freeze is not quite ready like before my freeze breaks. So I'm going to get the spectral guys off, and there's a proc. He got a brain freeze proc, and I'm gonna dispel that ASAP. That's actually very big. And all I do now is just Mind Blast on cooldown and Horrify him as soon as the Horrify comes back up. So he's in a kind of a tight situation here. All he has really is Deep Freeze coming up, and he does Deep Freeze me here, and I feel like I'm in a huge advantageous position, and like I have a brain fart and I disperse it. And I actually knew I would get polymorphed of this because he was so low and he had no cooldowns left and I was almost full HP. So the polymorph was extremely obvious, but I fell for it anyway. And that actually almost, like, he could have still won this duel right now because of me dispersing nothing. But I mean, he is way too low on HP to actually make a decent comeback. And he's going to shoot a Frostbolt and a Comet Storm, and that's going to slow me and be very annoying. While he's going to blink back and just Ice block for the regenerative Ice Glyph to get some HP back, and also he's probably waiting on his Deep Freeze to come back up. But the flip side is, you know, I'm pretty much full HP, and I'm getting my Horrify back, and also my Silence, and also like everything's coming back for me as well. I flash you a little bit because really there's nothing else to do. I should have actually Mind Blasted and dotted the pet up. That's a mistake that I did. I do manage to get the Fear right out of the Ice block, but I'm gonna pause here for a second, you know, because I want to tell you something. You know, Usain is obviously an undead, and most mages out there are human, not undead. And you know, against any non-undead mage, this Fear right here would have been definitely 100% the end of the duel. I would have dotted him up into a Mind Blast, into a Silence, into a Horrify, and GG. There's nothing they could have, like, they would not play the game from this point on. But since he's an undead, he does have that extra trinket on Fears. And I know he has that, so I'm going to juke this Vampiric Touch. And he's really fast with CS. This guy is insanely fast with CSs. But I managed to juke him anyway, but he was really close. After that, of course, I silence him, and I try to kill him. I thought this would be the game right here, but look at this. He actually Deep Freezes me, and look at the damage he can do. Look, I was full HP out of his Ice block. And of course, like, I'm gonna win the duel, because I have Horror back up, and I can finish him off right here. But look at my HP. Like, in a Deep Freeze, he got me to 40% HP. That's insane. So he made quite a few mistakes in this duel, but I chose to review this one in this video because in reality this is how most mages will play out the duel. So I think this is the most helpful version. Now in the next video, actually I'll tell you the story of the 5 stages. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up. It's been like this. So when we started dueling, you know, he won most of the games in the beginning, and then I kind of adapted. That was stage 1, okay? And then I kind of adapted to it, and I started winning every single duel. This was one of them, and this was stage 2. And then he pretty much realized, you know, okay, this is not working. He stepped his game up, and you know, there's stage 3, and stage 3 really fucked me up, and that was the longest and most annoying period, most frustrating of our dueling session, because he would just kill me every single time. I could not get a win from him. Sometimes I would get close, but I could never win any more games. But I found a way. I found a way. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I'm gonna divide it into, I thought of it like 3 episodes, okay? So episode 1 is gonna be stage 1 and 2. Episode 2 is gonna be stage 3, which was the most annoying and like the hardest thing for me to beat ever. And then episode 3 is gonna be stage 4 and 5. In stage 4, okay, I'm gonna spoil it for you. In stage 4, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. Never mind. Okay, you just have to watch it and see. Okay. So yeah, if you're fighting a really insanely good mage and you still can't beat him, then I suggest you watch the following 3 episodes. Or actually just episode 3 and 4, episode 2 and 3, I'm sorry. If you're really struggling and all you want to do is like come up with a tactic to beat them. Again, if we were to play with line of sight, it doesn't really matter. Like he has no chance. With line of sight, I would let's say he wins some games because I mess up really bad, but 90% of the games I will definitely win with line of sight. But if you're playing in the open and the mage, just, okay, I'm not gonna spoil, I'm not gonna say anything. Just watch episode 1, 2, and 3. And really, that's all there is to it. I really hope this guide helped you guys out. If it did, then it would be really awesome if you guys would share it around. And you know, a like and a comment never hurt anyone. And that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna leave you with, you know, the following episodes, and I really hope you check them out. Alright, well, I'll catch you in the next video, guys. See ya!